Level 1-3, Jova. Jova was an old-style town, the kind where all the buildings were built on top of each other, in close-knit stacks all covered in founder crosses, to keep away the scaries of old. The center of Jova was a bunch of shops, flats, and chapels, all put on top of each other like a bunch of puzzle pieces, intertwined together within a webbing of catwalks, ladders, and chain bridges. The rest of Jova was a bit more modern, with buildings and homes that spread out instead of up. And of course, Jova was one of the rare towns in autumn to have a trolley system, a horseless cart that ran on rails and could carry up to 100 elves. Luckily for Nolan, and every other turnkey without a horse, the second to last stop on the trolley was Ogre Dungeon. Nolan paid the ticket master and stumbled onto the next oncoming trolley. The trolley was packed, mostly with trophy ladies running chores around town, some gents too, well-dressed gents probably going to King's Building. King's Building was the trolley's last stop. King's Building was actually one of the five administrative fingers of the king. Their job was to cross every T and dot every I, but the truth was, if you asked a turnkey, their job was to stick their noses in your business, and should you be dumb enough to give them a chance, screw you over. I hate King's office, Nolan muttered, flopping down on the nearest trolley bench. He shut his eyes and passed out. The ride to Ogre Dungeon took 35 minutes. 35 minutes where Nolan was finally dead to the world, dreaming of a world where he did not commit any constable brutality of any kind. A world where he and Jeff were friends again, and they somehow sat down and had a drink together. Though truthfully, Nolan hadn't touched a drop in years. It was a nice world, one he actually wanted to live in, but then the train approached OG Station, and Ogre Dungeon woke him back up like it always did. For as long back as he could remember, Ogre Dungeon made Nolan feel terrible. Literally terrible. In fact, on his first day of the job, Nolan had a complete mental breakdown just from setting foot inside her. It wasn't the smell, though there was something terribly foul about the place. It was something Nolan felt inside his bones, in his gut, and even inside his heart, whenever he got too deep. Luckily for him, after 6 years of exposure, the feeling was starting to become manageable. What would once induce a panic attack inside him now only amounted to a dark, glowing flutter inside his chest. He supposed he could live with that as long as the paychecks kept coming. He could live with some vicious little butterfly of darkness fluttering around inside him. But what Nolan could never live with was the fact that no one inside all of Ogre Dungeon, or all of Autumn for that matter, ever seemed to feel it but him. Nolan turned to look outside the trolley window. Ogre Dungeon was massive, the definition of colossal. But Ogre Dungeon could never be seen from the outside, or from a mere trolley ride. From the outside, Ogre Dungeon was nothing more than a haunting, never-ending perimeter wall, a relic of older than old, left by the long-gone lords of long-gone times. The words. The long-gone lords of old used to be B-words. That dirty little word no elf ever seemed to speak without holding a founder cross of some kind close to his heart. There used to be V-words everywhere, back before elves took back the night, and their greatest keep used to be Ogre Dungeon. But now all that was left was the outer perimeter wall, a basement, a never-ending basement, that King's Building's bean counters decided to convert into a dungeon, thus saving mountains of tax rupees by avoiding building a new dungeon from scratch. Maybe it was the old spirits, old V-word spirits still haunting the place, that made Nolan feel so terrible, or, as Nolan gazed upon her in silence, with every other elf left on top of the trolley, maybe it was something else. Just what the hell had those vamps been doing inside her? And what had they built her for? These were questions Nolan had often wondered, though the thought of it always sent a shiver down his spine. To Nolan, Ogre Dungeon looked like a tumor upon the earth. Like a busted, rotting, festering boil. It may have saved plenty of rupees converting her into a max dungeon, but maybe it would have been better if King's Building finally filled the wound with mortar and forgot about her instead. Over Captain Sharperton's dead body, Nolan thought.